everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Purpose Hanging Time podcast. I'm your host, Ricky Pan, and my co-host,
Leon McFarlane.
And in today's episode, we're going to be interviewing Leon, the other half of the Purpose Hanging Time podcast, and we're going to be tracking the end of his relationship, in this case, divorce, to the start of a new one and the journey in between. But before we delve into that, firstly, I just want to take this time out to say a big thank you to everyone that watched and listened to the previous episode of the podcast. Firstly, for me, it was the most difficult podcast I had to do, both on an emotional, mental level. But the response from you guys has been overwhelming, and I really, from the bottom of my heart, can't say thank you enough for supporting us, and that podcast, that episode has just been therapy for me. But yeah, enough about me. Let's delve into kind of Leon's journey. And firstly, I guess let's take it back and start from the time that you officially filed for divorce. That would have been in April 2021, right, Leon?
Yes, that's right. So I filed for divorce. Well, actually, fun enough, it's an interesting situation because the separation, because we'll start off with the separation and then we'll go into the divorce. The separation and the moving away from my ex-wife, my ex-partner, was in March 2021. Everything had already been said and done. In my mind, the lines had been crossed, and it's, you know what? I remember telling myself once, or whilst packing and moving my stuff from North London, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. Putting all my stuff away. We already talked about separation and divorce, and I had to move back to the family home. So I moved everything with the idea of, okay, now you need to sort out the legalities for what essentially was my hopes and dreams dashed, which is the best way of putting it. So yeah, I started legalities in April 2021, which started off with a separation. That was the agreement that I had with my ex-wife. And while that was a very convoluted journey within itself of emotion, of disappointment, hopes and dreams dashed, as I said before, a part of it also garnered some relief from everything that was going on. It was a hard 3 years of being engaged, of being married. And yeah, it was a difficult journey. So when my separation legalities kept being pushed back, and then she decided herself, you know what, I'm going to go through the proper mediums, actually get a solicitor, and let's do this properly. I remember getting that email, June 2021. Getting an email. I remember I think I had the day off because I already knew it was going to be a difficult day. Getting that email essentially saying divorce proceedings have started. Whatever's going on financially, we are going to sort it out. You no longer need to be sending anything to do with separation. This has now been escalated to a divorce process.
Right. Yeah.
And my thoughts at that particular time, as I said before, the same as before I moved back to South London. But my thoughts were, I've failed. Like, I've literally failed. And now this is an official process where I have failed. I'm disappointed. Yeah. I'm upset. I couldn't make sure that my wife was happy. And yeah, as I said, it was very, very difficult because to be with someone for 7 to 8 years and then having to, I wouldn't say it was the easiest of journeys or the easiest of paths, but to see that journey come to an end was very, very difficult, but it needed to come to an end. And that's probably the most important thing, because I'm not going to slander my ex-wife, because at the end of the day, we had our times and we had our moments, right? We had positive times. We did a lot of travel. We've seen a lot of the world. We had a lot of fun times at the end of the day. A lot of experiences when it came to life.
Yeah.
But what was going on with her mentally at that particular time after we got engaged, it was not conducive to a happy and stable relationship. And it took so much for me to realize that, to be told before leaving from North London, I don't love you, I didn't want to be engaged, I didn't want to be married,
Mm.
whilst being in a short marriage as it is, as a guy who I would like to believe has integrity, it was very, very difficult to hear. But with the behavior that was going on, such as not coming back home, as you already know, Rix, because you were a part of the whole process and hearing what was going on,
Yeah.
it felt like relief finally having the legalities of divorce actually moving forwards. So, in terms of everything in a nutshell, that is how I felt. It was obviously, as I said, the fear, it was the disappointment, it was the failure. And if I'm
Mm.
going to fail at marriage, that means I'm going to fail at relationships in the future, right? Hence the reason why with this
Mm.
episode, we're focusing on that space in between. Because if you have this mindset after being divorced, and this is before the actual everything is signed on the dotted line, as in things actually complete,
Yeah.
how do you then trust yourself when it comes to relationships if you know that you've made such I wouldn't say a mistake, because I don't see my marriage, I didn't see my marriage as a mistake, and I didn't see my relationship with this person as a mistake. I see it as a learning lesson, a learning point. But if
Mm.
you go through all these things and it ended up in divorce, who's to say that the next relationship or the next connection with anyone is going to be solid? You're fearful, you can't trust yourself. And that's something that
Yeah.
I had to deal with internally.
Yeah. And that's so true. Especially with, a relationship like that. What you had to go through, the trials and tribulations,
Mm.
not it will break a lot of people, honestly, and there's always going to be a little bit of scar tissue there, so I totally understand that. And I'm sure
Mm.
many of our listeners who went through similar stuff with their partners, even though it may not be divorce or any go through any troubled waters in a relationship, I think they could totally relate and understand to that. So you mentioned kind of like the submitting the um, or starting the legal proceedings in April 2021. When did you finally get that official word saying, okay, this divorce is finalized, it's done now? Because I'm sure, not that I've went through it before, but I'm sure filing for divorce is a lengthy process, not only from a legal standpoint, but emotionally and mentally. But when did you kind of have that official stamp saying, okay, this marriage is finished now? Now I'm officially um, a free man, so to speak.
Yeah. So the official stamp when it came to the dissolution of marriage, so the finalization of divorce, was March/April 2022. So the actual divorce process was basically as long as the marriage itself, which is it's quite harrowing when you sit and think
Mm.
about it, because this is where there's this saying that always goes, you never see your true partner until divorce court, because
Mm.
this is where finances are finally put in writing for
Yeah.
everyone to see. There's full transparency between you, your partner, and the two solicitors that are essentially fighting this out for you. Or I said, actually, no, let's not use the term fighting, but trying to find a resolution
Mm.
to the actual problem. So you have that. Emotions are on the line. So all it takes is for, let's say, I think a good example in my divorce process was seeing so when it comes to, well, it's now changed because now we have a no fault divorce system in the UK as of last year. But when myself and my ex-wife were going through the divorce proceedings, it was fault based. So someone had to take responsibility for the breakdown of the relationship. Now, for
Mm.
me, who wanted to get out of this relationship after trying so hard to make sure it could work, essentially took the fall because I wanted a quick resolution, or quick in my mind, a quick resolution to what was going on. So that means when my ex-wife filed for divorce, she stated it was due to my unreasonable behavior, which
Right.
led to the breakdown of the marriage. Now, those who know me know, well, some people call me a gent, some people call me amicable, some people deem me as friendly, having positive energy. So
Yeah.
to have that mention of my unreasonable behavior with 5 particular points, because you can't file for divorce unless you have an actual solid reason for that divorce. And those 5 points, I felt assassinated my character so deeply that
Mm.
I wouldn't say it fractured me, but it definitely caused some fissures in my mindset when it came to life.
Oof. Yeah. And how did you kind of cope with that? That character assassination. I mean, no one
Mm-hmm.
likes to hear, um, especially those 5 points, basically telling you
Mm.
that you know it's all your fault. How do you
Mm.
deal with that, like on a mental and emotional level?
So for me, I guess the other thing to point out during this time was that my dad did pass away that January. So I had to deal with 2 major losses in my life, which made it made everything even more difficult. I know I use the term difficult a lot in here, but it can break a person. But in terms of the way how I had to deal with it, so let's go back to that quote I said to myself when I left from North London, and that was, "This is going to be hard, but then you're going to roll with the punches." And that's going back to your lovely quote from the last episode with your interview, where we were talking about the Rocky Balboa quote,
Mm.
where life's going to hit you hard, but then it's how hard do you deal with those punches. I
Yeah.
essentially said to myself, you know what, Leon, you're going to have to reinvent yourself. And whether that is physically, going to the gym, making sure that I have an outlet for all of this, whether that is consulting my support network, yourself, plenty of friends that knew both myself and my ex-wife, being transparent and being open, not allowing myself to harbor the negative feelings for too long, because that's
Yeah.
what essentially would bring that self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Even down to reading loads and loads of self-help books and just making sure that I had something to focus on and something positive to look forward to in the future. But also, there was a negative side, or I'd say a middling / a negative side to how I dealt with the situation. As it was a loss, I essentially had to grieve the situation, right?
Mm.
And this is my dad. My dad will focus on that on another episode, but it's more just to point out what the mind space was during that time.
Yeah.
But I had to grieve my relationship, my romantic relationship. And I
Yeah.
didn't allow myself to do that. And the reason why I didn't allow myself to do that is because I thought to myself, you know what, I can overcome this by literally, I won't say bottling up, but essentially transmuting that pain, that anger, that fear, the lack of
Mm.
support and everything into something else, and
Mm.
listen to content which would agree with my mindset. So I don't know if many of the listeners know, but there is such thing as the red pill community. And I became, I wouldn't say a big member of it. And when I say the red pill community, think of the Andrew Tates of this world, think of the Fresh and Fits of this world. We're not here being an advocate of, of those
Yeah.
podcasts, but there's certain elements that I would draw from that. I felt that I really could not trust being in another relationship. I felt that I couldn't trust women at that particular time. Not the hateful, because that would make me misogynist, and that's obviously not something we
Yeah.
perpetuate on this podcast. We seek understanding.
Yeah.
But I just felt I needed to silo myself. I needed to enter a monk mode of some sort, really, really just sit and improve on myself before seeking any other sort of relationship. Because as I said, if I could fail at marriage, like this, and this is what I generally thought at that particular time. What do I have to give until I can allow myself to rebloom or allow myself to rise from the ashes like a phoenix?
Yeah, no, that's true. And Leon, it's just hearing it again, having to deal with the loss of a romantic relationship, but also your dad as well. Full
Hmm.
credit to you, man, for kind of pulling through, because I can only imagine how hard it is dealing with kind of two situations together at the same time. It's crazy. Um, Now you mentioned something about monk mode. Now remember we had this conversation, right? The exact conversation we had was like, "Oh, Ricky, I'm gonna be like a monk." I was like, "What do you mean you're gonna be like a monk?" Yeah, I'm gonna abstain from like sex and dating and relationships.
Hmm.
And you said that for a whole year, right? But honestly, you failed at that. um, do you want to delve a bit more into what you meant by monk mode and how you were planning to
Hmm.
just work on yourself a whole year and then how that kind of transpired from there?
Yeah. So, in terms of the monk mode theory and the monk mode idea, it is coming from the red pill community because I was a very big fan of a YouTuber called the Coach or Coach Greg Adams,
Shout
a
out to the
guy,
coach.
a guy who he based himself on edutainment, as he likes to call it, educating those gentlemen who have had bad situations when it came to relationships. They did not get the outcome that they wanted,
Yeah,
and essentially really, really, really wanted to focus on improving themselves so
yeah,
when they are ready to get back onto the market, they would be ready for the market. But obviously, once they have dealt with their own individual demons, focusing on the finances, focusing on the career, and focusing literally just not on women and not
mm,
on what society perpetuates today, where it's
yeah,
oh, go out, get as many women as you like, or
yeah,
be dating on this constant carousel,
yeah,
which I didn't particularly agree with. So essentially, what the monk mode was, and I can laugh about it now, the monk mode situation was okay. I'm going to, once I move back home, because I want to move back to the family home, let me focus on my career. At that current moment in time, we were in, I think it was second or third lockdown.
yeah,
And the third lockdown was our chance to shine at my old workplace because I'm a scientist, as most people do know.
yeah,
And with being a scientist, we're working in the COVID-19 field. So it was vaccines, it was a lot of outreach. And for
mm,
me, one of my passions definitely is it's to have that outreach and to talk, generate, and give the impetus to the next generation of scientists. To me, that is very, very, very important. So with that, that was one of the main pillars of the monk mode. It essentially was focusing on that work, getting my name out there, interviews. I was on a panel interview with the Black academics, which, funnily enough, going into that interview, I was not prepared. Have a check and have a look at it on LinkedIn, and you'll be like, "Oh, this." Well, I
mm,
love it because it's definitely a learning point. It was definitely a way for me to really, really push myself out there, which I thought was very, very important for exposure and for myself whilst
mm,
going through such a difficult time. Just having something that was positive to look at and having a goal, I found was very, very important for me to move forward during that
yeah,
time and during my monk mode time. The second side was finances, is making sure that I wasn't expending on nonsense. Basically, a
yeah,
wedding is not cheap. Divorce is not cheap. Solicitors are not cheap. So it was really just to garner and really, really have that mindset to really get back to let me put my money back in my pocket again. Let me
yeah,
allow myself the leeway and the leverage to be able to move myself forward in life, whatever I decide to do, whether it is buying a property or whether it's I want to go on a sabbatical or whether
yeah,
I want to move to the US. It's all these different things. I'll go on nice, luxurious holidays to make myself better. So these are all the very key important things that were part of monk mode. And then the other important thing was to not allow my mind to be swayed by ladies that are out there. Because for me, it was, okay, you know what? As I said before in this interview, you failed at one thing. You need to go and lick your wounds now. You need to put yourself back together again, like with Lego pieces, and just make sure that you are solid enough to be able to deal with the ladies, or the ladies that I was attracting. Let's put it that way. It's probably a better way of putting it. That I was attracting before that point.
Yeah.
And when I had a look at the dating market, I want to say had a look, just literally seeing what my single friends had to deal with. So I will mention yourself, Ricky, and quite a few other close male friends and close female friends. I was looking at them thinking, this looks like a cesspit at this current moment in time. It looks hostile. It looks crazy. I've never used a dating app before and I don't plan to. So what I'm going to do is focus on myself, get myself in the gym, get my head down and really rebuild my life, because this is my chance of rejuvenating myself again and trying everything again. Just literally another restart at life, which I'm very, very fortunate to have.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome to hear. Now, to my previous story, when I said you kind of failed at monk mode, I didn't mean it in kind of like you failed in rebuilding yourself. It was
Oh
just
yeah, of
that
course.
time duration, right? You said a full
Yeah.
year, but do you kind of want to let the listeners know what happened that caused you to break that monk mode?
Well, when we say monk mode, we'll talk about it in terms of intimacy. So in terms of intimacy and just really avoiding I won't say avoiding opposite, but avoiding in a romantic manner, just to give some clarity there. What actually happened is, with me being so focused on myself, and this is why I think that for anyone who does go through the same sort of situation, where it's divorce or where there has been a traumatic event, when you start to focus on yourself and you do essentially a gap analysis on yourself, on what is going on and why, because when it comes to divorce and any sort of change from a big circumstance, you then start to reflect on things that you could have done better. Was I big enough? As in, when I say big, as in, was I muscular enough? Was I athletic enough? Did I have the right job? Did I spend enough time? You start to think. And essentially, with that monk mode idea, I started to do that gap analysis. And I wouldn't say the residual effect. The effect of doing that then means that you become, I wouldn't say a high value target, but then you become very attractive to certain individuals, right? So I spent my monk mode, in inverted commas, essentially lasted about 3 to 4 months. It's up until my 31st birthday, so we're talking about July 2021. I have been consistent in the gym. I started to cycle to work, which was so cathartic. It basically gave me a new lease of life doing that. And obviously with everything going on with the science work, it allowed me to really, really find joy during such a process. And that joy was definitely emanating from me. So when lockdown ended, we went out. We started to go back out again. I was thinking to myself, do I want to go out clubbing? Not particularly, not really, but let's go and club. And we went out. And what I noticed that the landscape was very, very different. I was starting to attract a lot of ladies whilst being out there, not having to actually go and talk to ladies, but I could go out, and then it just felt that I was emanating some sort of, I wouldn't say pheromone, but people, when I would discuss and talk about what's going on in life and what's going on in my life, it just seemed so positive to the opposite sex, for those who actually were looking for some sort of relationship, or those who were just interested in, what would I call it? Not a relationship, but I'd call it not a friendship, a situationship.
Relationship. Yeah.
We'll call it that. So I found myself in a completely new world. I was thinking to myself, being a man going through divorce, and yet again, just to reiterate, listeners, watchers, community, my relationship was over. My relationship was completely over. Divorce was definitely on the table and it was going in that direction. So, me explaining that story to others I was expecting it to be seen as a negative, but it was not in terms of the opposite sex. It was actually seen as a positive. It was seen as a benefit. I was seen as a man who committed, was unlucky in love, and essentially knew where he wanted to go. Therefore, it would attract more and more ladies at the time. And I was thinking, and I remember saying to you, Rix, what is going on? It seems like I'm having a post-divorce glow up,
Were
which
you
makes no sense.
were you still wearing the kind of ring at this during this time? Can't remember.
No. So once everything had gone through, I want to say gone through. Once we started proceedings, I made sure the ring was off. It was kept in
Right.
a
Okay.
drawer because it was too painful to carry that ring. And the reason why I say it was painful is because I already knew that the decisions that had been made,
Mm.
there was no real way of going back. Too many things had been said
Yeah.
from the significant other. What we got married in Hawaii, and to me, it felt that all these things just wasn't enough. So the new chapter had already begun,
Yeah.
and it was just to get the official signing off to say this had now been complete, sorted. So
Yeah.
going back to that post-divorce glow up again. Yeah, because I started to dress differently, there was just a different energy I was giving. I remember you saying at one point in one of our earlier episodes, whilst going through, or literally just before the divorce process with the marriage, I was very, I wouldn't say whiny, but I just didn't really have a positive, I had a really negative mindset on life. I was upset. I wasn't really a great person to be around.
You are so miserable, and there were some days I'm like,
That's
"Don't
the
talk to
term we
this
want to
guy.
use. Yeah, miserable. Yeah.
I don't want to talk to this guy, because I
Mm,
remember how much it affected you, and
mm,
I think I can speak for both of us. We're both positive people in the sense that we feed off positive vibes, energy. So yeah, I mean, being around negativity, it kind of brings you down a little bit. But
yes,
you know,
exactly.
like I said, bro, you went
Mm,
you went through it, you got through it, and you mentioned the kind of post-divorce club. I think it's interesting just to kind of delve a bit more deep into the kind of psychology behind it. I think you
mm,
mentioned before you were seen as a catch because you actually, even though you were divorced, and I think in a woman's mind they were like, well, obviously he's a guy that's you know has been in a long-term relationship, has the experience, has the attention, as not just looking for a hookup. So I think maybe girls kind of sense that's a sense of like they could trust you to a certain extent. Okay, this guy's not just going to be looking
yeah.
for just a quick one night stand, for example. Why is he telling me about his divorce? Oh, he's opening up, he's playing vulnerable, and I think females are beginning to appreciate that more and more.
Yeah, I definitely believe it was the transparency. The transparency. So so that plus a leather jacket. Because as soon as I put on that leather jacket, people and I'm sure many people have seen this leather jacket. If you know me personally, I know the stories behind it. Yeah, that's what people knew. Okay, this is a new Leon. This is someone he's changed. What's going on? So
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess that would lead me on to, I guess, the first instance of romance. We'll just call her Miss R for now, right? So the first instance of romance where it's a very important point, a very significant point when we talk about the space in between the ending of my long-term relationship and the starting of a new great relationship. With Miss R, it was a very big point where the fact that she was so she was attracted to me, but in terms of the wanting factor from either sides, the attracting factor on either sides, I realized, you know what? This lady is not for me. and if this is representative of what is going on in the dating market at this current moment in time, the attraction factor from my side is not particularly high. Yes, I now garner, I can attract others and have options, but let me not string this person along. Even if I was to be in a relationship with this person, even though she's definitely not ready, coming from a more, would I say, a more no, not senior, a more veteran sense in terms of relationships, because audience, as you probably already know, yet again, I've been in relationships since the age of 18. So it's only been 2 relationships, but they've been long-term relationships. So in terms of my experience, you can generally see who has not been in a relationship before or who has been in multiple short-term relationships. And you can start to, from that behavior, you can then say, you know what, I'm okay. So divorce proceedings had already started to go all the way, well, near more at the end part. It was more just the lag phase at the end of just decisions from the solicitors to get everything finalized. This was my first dalliance with romance, and I essentially realized it wasn't for me. I wasn't ready. One, or I didn't feel I was ready. And this person definitely was not ready. And yeah, it wasn't what I was looking for. And it's the first time, I think, for me as a man, I had low self-esteem when I was younger in my original relationships. It showed that I was at a turning point where my self-esteem was high. I was successful. I was achieving. This person who was there, like, good friend at the time, but yeah, it wasn't for me. And this is where, yet again, the monk mode was still there, essentially. There was a slight bit of intimacy, but it wasn't for me, and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And I was very, very stubborn with that mindset of, this is not going to go anywhere, and no lady's going to take me off this path of full monk mode and not being in a relationship. Sorry, and it's not going to take me off the path of, not being in a relationship, exactly. Until one special lady came along, and we are here now, after what? We're in 2023, November 2023, and it's been, yet again, it's been a journey, but a serendipitous journey. And yeah, looking back at myself then, if I continue to be in that monk mode and just essentially say, you know what, no, I still don't want relationships, I still don't want this, where would we be now? Well, we wouldn't be in a relationship. So, yeah.
I mean, it's funny hearing that, because there's the old cliche saying, it comes when you least expect it, right? So now transitioning to this new relationship you had with your partner, just kind of take us through the story of how you guys met. I'm pretty sure the leather jacket you mentioned has something to do with it, right?
Yes, so the leather jacket is the MacGuffin in this story. It's a constant feature throughout this whole period in time, and I'm so thankful for that leather jacket and the situation that ensued. As I tell this story, I can already see in my head where my current partner will tell me that is not how the story went. It actually was this way around and this and that. But I'll go with what I remember at that particular time. So, yet again, we're going back to July 2021, right? So, yet again, listeners, to point out and make sure that it is clear, the relationship that I had with my ex-wife was over, going through that divorce process, right? So that already was off in that sense. And I was happy to be friendly with ladies. That's perfectly fine. I want to say friendly, that is only platonic relationships. So my mindset was always on platonic. So, fun enough, the same place where we met, or where I met Miss R. We went out for another night out. I think this was 2 weeks later on. And the same leather jacket, the MacGuffin in the story, came along with me, right? So during that night, I actually drank quite a lot, to the point where I didn't black out, but I just didn't remember certain instances of what was going on. Dark nightclub, I'm sure you get the gist, right? So during that night out, put my leather jacket down in a bunch of jackets. And let's say 2-3 hours went past. I don't know whether I removed myself from the club, or I don't know whether it was security who removed me out of the club. That is something that we will never know, right? But in my haste, I picked up a leather jacket from the bunch of coats, right? And from that, I just kept that leather jacket on. And it was only until, let's say, pardon me, the journey back home where I realized, hold on, this jacket feels a bit thin. What is going on? And it doesn't particularly fit me correctly. And then I realized it was a female leather jacket. And even to this day, I was just thinking, oh no, Rare Nephews yet again. This is not sponsorship for Rare Nephews, but they are a proponent. Them plus Jack Jones, who's the manufacturer of the jacket, the leather jacket. They are the ones that essentially started up everything. So I got back home. Now, in my leather jacket, my actual leather jacket, it had my keys, it had my cards, credit cards, debit cards. It had my ID. So it also had, my driving license. And on top of that, also had my keys. So essentially, a lot of my life was in that leather jacket. And here I am with a stranger's leather jacket that smelled of a very, very nice lady's perfume. But it wasn't my leather jacket, right? So this was on the Friday night / Saturday morning. And I remember on the Saturday itself thinking, oh no, this is ridiculous. So I've lost all this stuff on a night out that I didn't particularly realize was going to happen. What is actually going to happen now? How are we going to what I was thinking to myself, the jacket couldn't have, well, no one spent any money from my account. So that's good. So it must be in safe hands. So I decided to go back to that specific club, ask, has anything been posted into Lost and Found? And there was nothing put into Lost and Found. And I was thinking, okay, this must be in a safe place because nothing has happened to any of my accounts. Yeah, nothing has happened. Everything seems normal. Obviously, you have that slight worry whenever you lose anything. You always have that slight worry when it comes to anything that has been lost of value. Yeah. So I thought, you know what? Let me wait it out until Sunday before I cancel any cards, or Sunday / Monday before I cancel any cards, because I'm sure this will find out. My gut was telling me, you know what? This is in a safe place, and it has to be in a safe place. So the Sunday night comes along. I get a mysterious Facebook ad from someone who I've never met before, called Gabrielle Ferguson. I was thinking, this is interesting, because normally on Facebook, you'll be pushed forwards with, people who you may know, or some people may add you and you don't know particularly who they are. Yeah. And you just wouldn't add them. But I had this gut feeling that was telling me, this is your jacket, and this is all your goods basically coming back to you, and this person has it. So I added the lady, and we had a brief talk, and she essentially asked, am I Leon McFarlane? So if those of you if you don't know, if you were to search my name into Google, there are 3 Leon McFarlanes. There's one that works for Disney as a videographer, or used to work for Disney. And then there's another one, don't remember what he does, but there's 3 on there. So she managed to find me, and then we organized a meet to do the transferring of goods, because obviously I needed to give her back her leather jacket, and I needed to take back my leather jacket with all my goods. And I'm thankful to this day that she could have committed identity fraud, because on my actual, again, as we know, when it comes to a driving license, it has your registered address on there. So it has your registered address, everything is on there. So you could essentially book flights to crazy places, being essentially identified as one person, or you can open up a new bank account as this person and just make sure that the details are in your name. So there's all different things you can do with that information. So I'm very, very thankful that it was in the right hands. So met up with her on that Monday after. I remember cycling back from work, essentially met her at Clapham Junction. And it was quite convenient that she was based literally not too far away from where I was. It's literally just a 10, 15-minute train, right? And I was thinking, these all seem to be positive things. So we met up, we did the exchange, gave her a nice big hug. I just said, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I knew that this was an amazing lady. She was calm. She was attractive. She was positive. And she just and when I say positive, just emanated that positivity. Now, from then, again, I wasn't looking to date because I was going through my situation, just waiting for the T's to be crossed and the I's to be dotted.
Mm.
But I was thinking, there may be something special about this person. And she spoke quite eloquently as well. So I said, you know what, let's meet up for some coffee after work. As a big thank you for bringing back my goods, because at the end of the day, as I said before, she could have committed identity fraud. There's a lot of things that could have happened.
Just to add to that point, I remember when you told me this story, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm meeting this girl for coffee, and I said, remember I said to you, dude, it's a date, and you said, no, it's not a flipping date, it's a date.
And the thing is, a lot of others also pointed this out as well. So we have a good friend. Well, I have a good friend, Natalie, who, when I explained to her, and shout out to Natalie because she's been a big support during the whole process as well when it came to this. She was saying, well, if you're going for a coffee with a lady as a thank you, you are aware there's no coffee. You can't get coffee after 7 p.m. I'm like, I'll find somewhere where they make coffee at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's completely correct. So with that, and then also another friend said that it also sounded like it sounded like a fairy tale or a fantasy or the start of something amazing and special. And I remember saying to this friend, you need to be quiet. You're talking too much. And that is my friend Ephraim. Big up to Ephraim as well. I know he's one of the listeners on this podcast. So with all that, went for this date, looking back in hindsight, it was a date, you know? And the first thing that Gabrielle asked me was, are you married? You know, one of the first things. Yet again, she arrived not thinking it was a date, it literally just a thank you and everything. She asked, are you married? And I went through the full details of what was going on with the divorce, what the story was, how unhappy I was, trying to just make sure everything worked, and it just wasn't working out, and what the future looked like. And then from there, we just kicked it off really, really, really well as amazing friends. Absolutely amazing friends. We were reading very, very similar books. I forgot what on at this current moment, but yeah, really, really similar books at that particular time. It was on boundaries. Reading some books on boundaries, and it wasn't a coffee date, and it actually ended up being a pub date because we had some alcohol, we had some drinks, we were talking, and 4 hours just went like that. And from then, essentially, we set up another meetup where I taught her how to ride a bike in Battersea Park, which is really, really good. And we were just talking absolutely every day for such a long period of time, and it was such a massive shift and a massive change, and it was refreshing from my previous relationship, and I felt supported. But then at the same time, in the back of my mind, it was always I already failed at one relationship. I'm not ready for another relationship. The signs that Gabrielle is attracted to me are all there. I ignored them for a certain amount of time. And, it was obviously getting to a point where it was difficult to ignore, because I obviously was attracted to her as well. And as much as we both agreed that I stole her leather jacket, maybe when it comes to the inherent built-in, you never know. I'm sure I probably saw her during the night and probably planned it and instigated it. You never know, right? But it's a lovely story. As in that part, just having that connection with someone who essentially is on the same page as you, understands the difficult situation you're going through, and is willing to give you that support. That's as a friend. So with that transition from friend to essentially being my partner, it was quite seamless because it was more of the same thing, but we fully committed to each other. And for me, it was more me. The issues were more with me trying to commit in that sense. And when I say commit, we're not saying I had other options on the side. No, not at all.
Mm.
But it was me understanding where I was in terms of mindset and realizing that she's not a threat.
You mentioned, Leon, you start off as amazing friends first, and then you became partners. Was there one specific moment? Because you just said that you were kind of deliberately ignoring the signs that she was attracted to you and stuff. Subconsciously, you knew it. But was there a specific like moment where you were like, okay, I'm ready to kind of make this transition from friends into romantic partners?
I would say yes and no. And the reason why that's a difficult question to answer is because in myself, the the morality and the mindset of I'm still going through this divorce process. I
Mm,
wanted it to be official. I didn't want her to be seen as the person who came straight and directly after.
mm,
I'm not having to sit and think about, okay, am I ready to be in a relationship? And obviously, when it came to all the different hardships that year, dad passing, moving, literally upturning my life completely. So moving from North London back to South,
yeah,
it was difficult to know when that time particularly was. But I knew I was attracted to her after having that first conversation. Well, that meetup and doing the exchange of the jackets and the goods. I knew I was attracted to her in terms of when it came to the pub chat because we were, as I said, talking about books, talking every day. And normally when it does come to relationships, to have that good relationship, having that communication always has been the main thing. And I already knew that she was fun but serious about life when it came to learning how to ride that bike in Battersea Park as well. That was a really, really great day. And I think because all the experiences were positive, her understanding how difficult life was during the time as well. I think if I was to pick a time, is when I stayed over at hers the second time. No, not the second time. The first time around,
mm,
where her friend, we met up for an actual. I wouldn't say, yeah, again. Okay, no, let's just use the common term date because it makes it more.
yeah,
It makes it more clear in
yeah,
terms of everything that's going on. It was more my muddied mind that didn't make it think it was a date,
yeah,
right? So the third day where we went axe throwing, and she asked me straight up front, "Do you find me attractive?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I think it was then when I thought to myself, you know what, the seeds had already been sown in
yeah,
terms of my attraction and my commitment to you. My commitment to you is of a boyfriend's level of commitment. I care for you so much as a friend. I'm happy to move towards that direction, but I'm scared. And I think that's
mm,
ultimately the main thing. I was absolutely frightened,
mm,
frightened out of my mind to say, yes, I will be your boyfriend because
yeah,
the trauma from before. And on top of that, I guess the next point to really, really discuss is all the different nuggets of information that I was getting from friends, from family, which can act as a double edged sword, and from the red pill as well. It can act as a very big double edged sword when it comes to really make a decision of what you want in life romantically.
yeah,
So, yeah, so again, all different types of information. So, whilst going through this process, my granddad and my cousin on my dad's side, this is where when I say the lovely side, the human side from my family on that side, they opened up. This is me the first time hearing my granddad talk about his divorce and everything that was going on with my grandma back before and his current partner and how that happened, how that sequence and situation happened. And he was explaining to me how he was fearful as well. So I really managed to resonate and make a connection with my granddad with that, being someone who had been there before. My dad had a partner before my mum, and he went through difficulties during that time. So that's something I could always relate to. And then I also had a cousin who also had been through the same sort of situation where the the information and the advice was make sure your money is kept away, keep it away from the solicitors, tell them that tell them it was a loan from a family member. And I remember thinking, I can't do that. That goes against the morals completely. And then obviously I would have other friends stating, oh, I want you to just have fun for now. Yes, you may have met this new person, but I just want you to have fun. Enjoy the single life. But that wasn't me, because I've never really been a part of the single life. And I'm not going to say it's not having integrity, going out and doing what society tells you to do, where it's, okay, you've broken up with someone, now you can go and enjoy the fruits of being sexually liberated. It's not my personality, because I wouldn't put sex and intimacy that high up on the list when I'm single. At the end of the day, having purpose and connection with someone, I see it as on a higher plane than that. And then even, let's say, yourself, because when it came to Gabs and me talking about Gabs and me potentially having a relationship with her, I remember you saying, let's wait a year until I meet up with her, because at the end of the day, let me just make sure that this is a consolidated relationship before I meet up. I know, obviously, I see you smiling like you are right now, because obviously we're here now, 2.5 years later, and she's still there. But yeah, it's a lot of signals that you get once you are out of a relationship and then moving into a new one at a rapid pace. But when something is good for you, and when something has a positive benefit on your life, yeah, you just have to make those decisions, right? And I guess it depends on how easily you are, I wouldn't say swayed by your community, but how easy you pick up someone else's advice and say, you know, I have to do this or I have to do that. Not all of us have great community networks. And I'm so grateful to have such an amazing network, such as yourself, such as the Crazy People group, which is our St. George's group. My family on my mum's side as well, where everyone had their own specific viewpoints, which I thought, it's at the end of the day, it's completely up to you. But just make sure you take the correct nuggets of information and move forward with some sort of integrity, and at least make sure that decision is for you and not for everyone else.
Very, very well put. Very, very well put. And now you mentioned that you and Gabs have been, Jesus, time flies by. 2.5 years now. It's crazy. So kind of just give us like a current update, on how the relationship is going, and kind of like what do you think the future entails for you and Gabs?
So in terms of our life's been great. And obviously there has been hurdles, as you would in any sort of relationship. But even down to when I did say to her, look, okay, let's officially make our day in September. That's when we are not officially met, but we officially made the decision to be partners in this life, be boyfriend and girlfriend. There have been ups and downs for her, which I'll let her, there will be an interview with her being on this platform discussing what those ups and downs were, because obviously you're getting my perspective. Her perspective is going to be a very interesting one, because this is the thing. If you're going to be in a relationship with someone who has this baggage, right? And we'll call it baggage can be positive or negative, right?
Absolutely.
Someone who has this because baggage can be also experience. It depends on what the person is doing with that baggage. You have someone with all this baggage, and you're coming in as someone who has been single for a certain amount of time. You just want to get up and go. You want to start this relationship and actually enjoy the relationship, rather than having to deal with the the extra residual, I'm not going to call it waste, but the residual feelings and demons that person has from the previous relationship. Hence why I was so focused on, let me get everything sorted out first and then move forwards. But you know how the world works and how life works. You can never, things happen when you're not prepared for it. But if you're willing to be preparing, or you're willing to at least reflect on yourself and look at yourself inwards and say, you know what, this is what's going on, but this is a positive thing and I want to move towards my North Star, then that's what you can do, right? So in terms of the life that we have now, the life's been great because there's certain things that I've definitely had to go and seek counsel for. When I seek counseling, that's actual counseling and therapy, where there's certain things that have been uncovered, such as anxiety towards certain things that happen in a relationship, being on guard, being defensive when it comes to certain situations in our relationship where I've literally just misconstrued the whole situation and have not read it correctly.
Yeah.
So for me, being in a relationship for 7 years, well, I wouldn't say it's because of the relationship, but me and my personal being, I'm one who in younger years never thought myself to be good enough, right? Had low self-esteem. The first relationship I ever had back in St. George's, that is one where the person who I was dating at the time took advantage of that, one. And two, yeah, again, we both were young, but in that scheme of things, took advantage of that, and it just made me feel worse after the relationship ended. And I moved into the second relationship thinking that, okay, you know what, let me try again after this period of time, but there's still things that hadn't been mended after all of everything that had happened beforehand.
Yeah.
So low self-esteem, low confidence, all these things. Moving to my relationship with Gabrielle, I had all those things in spades, the confidence and everything, but I felt I had to overcompensate. So that would lead to arguments where I would be stubborn, I would dig my heels in, I would try and read a situation as if I was with the person that was with my ex-wife.
Yeah.
Two completely different people. So that's something that I had to learn massively, that you can't go into a situation thinking that the reaction from your current partner is going to be the same as your previous partners. Every single relationship is different.
Yeah.
And what I have noticed with our current relationship, it does work like a symbiosis, because whenever I have my low points, I can open up. And that's something that I felt I could not do during those final years of my previous relationship. My ex-wife was going through her things mentally. I'm not going to blame her entirely, because obviously when it comes to divorce, when it comes to anything like that, there's no one person in the wrong. There are certain things that people put into the mix, into the big bowl.
Yeah.
That causes the disruption and causes the breakdown, the dissolution of a marriage. But what I've learned from that is, when it comes to this relationship, being open, being vulnerable, being accountable, having those communication levels. Shout out back to our old Green Flag series. But we always have the reason why that series exists is because of all the experiences that I've had, all the experiences that you've had. And that's what makes this podcast what it is today. But yes, in terms of how the relationship is going, it's going well, it's going smooth. We both bring positive things to the table, and it's both things that we can work on, but it's going in the positive direction. And I do look forward to that day where I can be engaged to her and I can be married to her, because it is going in that positive direction and we continue to grow. And that's the main thing that you should be seeking for in a relationship or in a stable relationship. It's that constant growth and understanding of the two individuals. And that can only happen if you have those principles in your system and in your mindset of, I'm going to be accountable, I'm going to communicate, this is my attachment style. You have to understand yourself as much as you can to be present and to be successful in a relationship. And those are the key learnings that I've learned from that.
I mean, and it's awesome to hear.
Mhm.
And what a journey you've been on, from
Mhm.
death of your old relationships to the birth of your new one with Gabs, and,
Mm.
everything in between, the way you built yourself, the lessons you've had to learn, you've had to had along the way. I mean, it's been awe-inspiring. And yeah, if any of our listeners or viewers can take away from it, um, it's just, yeah, just it's just a beautiful journey, man. Just a beautiful journey. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Leon. Now, in true Purpose Hang Time fashion, we always like to end the podcast with a quote. So I'm going to hand it to you to finish.
So, my quote for today is a quote that I share with my good friend, my very good friend Patrick, who we talk. We talk on a constant basis. And that is a quote from Franklin D. Roosevelt. Smooth seas do not make skilled sailors. And the reason why I use that quote is because it fully emphasizes and resonates with me with everything that has happened over the past few years. Because if it wasn't for those situations with my ex-wife, it wasn't for my dad passing, if it wasn't for the magical Gabrielle coming into my life, I would not be the person I am today. Wouldn't be the person I am today whatsoever. My ex-wife, me and my journey with her came to an end romantically, but everything that I draw from that experience, despite what was going on in terms of the situation, is that I've seen the world. I have a lot of experience in terms of actually just seeing the world, visiting different cultures, and being able to sit and chat to people about it, be excited about what I've seen in terms of, and it really, really builds the building blocks for my personality. That's one thing. So shout out to her in terms of that, and I hope that she is doing well at the end of the day, because we're not here to put down people. Purpose Hang Time, we're here to elevate and lift people up, right? So that's that part. In terms of my dear dad, which we will probably delve into in another interview episode, because I think that's got some key nuggets of information how to deal with grief. He had left me with a lot of important skills, entrepreneurship, the ability to just hustle and be present in the moment. And as much as it is sad that he's not here today, the things that he left us with as a family, and him being my dad, there was no one better in terms of being a dad. So that's the other thing. In terms of the support network, obviously ups, downs, and everything like that, but they have been there and helped me to be a more skilled sailor. And in terms of career and everything else, yeah, all of this stuff and where I am today wouldn't be because of everything that's happened. And in terms of the positive nuggets and the positivity that Gabrielle brings into my life, yeah, it's one of the reasons why we are here today and why this podcast has actually become a lot more consistent as well, as she is our unofficial creative director. So yes, it'll be good once we get her onto the podcast so we can actually interview her and you can see her as an actual individual explaining her side of this story. So yeah, in good Purpose Hang Time fashion, it's been a great episode. It's been an episode where I have had to take a different role, but yeah, I'm very happy that we managed to put this out there. So thanks, Ricky, for being there for support. Thanks for all the support systems, people who have been highlighted, the people who know they've been important in this this journey, and will continue to deliver what we do on the Purpose Hang Time podcast.
Yeah, beautifully said, man. Beautifully said. And with that, yeah, we come to the end of another episode. And as always, people just keep shooting the breeze.
Yeah, keep shooting that breeze, and we'll be back with the next episode as soon as possible. So remember to follow on social media, and yep, we shall keep the content flowing. Peace out.